This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My wife cheated on me with my brother. She offered no explanation, not even a perfunctory excuse. For 3 years, I cherished her, only to hear her say, "Asterisk, you just look like him, that's all." Asterisk, they loved each other passionately, and the internet adored their love story, completely forgetting that the award-winning actress Hailey had a husband, me. But that's okay. This time, I don't care, because I've been reborn. Hailey was New York's most celebrated actress, the sole white moonlight in countless hearts. I was the eldest son of New York's wealthiest family, the first name people cursed when they thought of an idle wastrel. And yet, somehow, we suddenly announced our marriage. From that day forward, reporters surrounded me at every turn, and her fans bombarded me with relentless abuse. Still, I bore it all willingly. After all, I had fallen for her at first sight and secretly loved her for 13 years. More importantly, she was the one who proposed. But how could I have known? She never loved me. She married me to provoke the memory of someone else, and I foolishly believed we were mutually in love until 3 years later, when he returned, my brother, Tony, the man she truly loved. Asterisk, we've loved each other for 15 years. I'm willing to give up everything for him. That marriage was never my choice. Asterisk, that's what she declared while holding Tony's hand before a crowd of New York's reporters, as I lay on an operating table fighting for my life after a car accident. In my past life, I didn't survive. I died on that table, overwhelmed with resentment, confusion, and regret. But this time, I miraculously woke up, carrying with me all the memories of my past life, from the final moments before death to the cold truth after. Asterisk, Mr. Rocky, your wife wishes to see you. Asterisk, 10 days have passed since I regained consciousness, and this is the first time Hailey has come to visit me. I knew she was getting anxious. In my previous life, after their audacious public confession, the world began digging into their so-called love story. Breakups and reconciliations, drama and passion. Theirs was deemed a tragic romance caught in the crosshairs of a heartless elite. Her claim that that marriage was never my choice became evidence for the masses that I had coerced her into marriage. Tony's reckless car chase was painted as an act of courage for love, and my death, just karma, justice served. As my widow, Hailey chose not to hold Tony accountable for the crash. As for my family, our family had already lost one son. To protect the remaining one, even if he was illegitimate, they turned a blind eye. No one cared why I really died. I was merely a stepping stone on the path of their great love story. But this time, I didn't die. The moment I woke up, I demanded a full investigation into the car crash. No private settlements. So Hailey's visit today wasn't out of concern for her husband. It was for Tony. Sure enough, she stormed into the hospital room and started scolding me with a look of utter displeasure. Asterisk, Rocky, you're going too far. Can't you stop making things hard for Tony? He's not like you. He's worked his way up from nothing. He doesn't deserve this. Asterisk, Hailey. I interrupted her, my weak voice tinged with pain and scrutiny. Asterisk, the doctors said it's a miracle I woke up. I was so close to dying. Asterisk, some part of me still held onto a sliver of hope. After all, maybe my past life was just a terrible dream. That's why I hadn't mentioned divorce these past few days or responded to the media. I was waiting for her to show up. I looked at her, hoping for even the faintest trace of affection or guilt. But the moment she heard my words, a flicker of annoyance crossed her face. When she spoke again, her tone was dismissive. Asterisk, but you're fine now, aren't you? Can't you just let it go? Asterisk, I knew she only cared about Tony, but hearing her so blatantly disregard me still sent a dull ache through my chest, mixed with rising anger. Asterisk, Hailey, I've lost feeling in my legs. There's a good chance I'll never walk again. Is that what you call fine? And don't forget, you're still my wife. We're not divorced yet. Asterisk, I struggled to control my emotions, but the fury in my voice was unmistakable. She froze, momentarily stunned that I would raise my voice at her. Then, she smirked mockingly and pulled out a document from her bag. Asterisk, Tony said you're clinging to me because I've embarrassed you. I didn't believe him, but now I see he was right. Asterisk, here's the divorce agreement. I'll leave with nothing, as long as you let Tony go. Asterisk, her words made me laugh bitterly. I truly couldn't understand her logic. She and Tony publicly declared their love, essentially admitting to infidelity. What made her think that offering to leave with nothing was a valid bargaining chip, especially when it was a lie? Over the past 3 years, I had gradually transferred 10% of the corporation's shares to her, yet the agreement made no mention of those shares. Asterisk, Hailey, why? If you loved Tony so much, why did you come to me in the first place? Why did you make me marry you? Asterisk, I sighed and finally asked the question I had kept bottled up for 2 lifetimes. She hesitated for a moment moment before speaking softly. Asterisk, because you look like him. Asterisk, look like him? Of course, we're brothers, after all. I smiled bitterly. Asterisk, that's it? Hailey, was there ever even a moment, a single moment, when you loved me? Asterisk, my eyes searched hers, filled with despair. She avoided my gaze, swallowed hard, and cleared her throat. After a long pause, she nodded slightly. Asterisk, no, Rocky, I never loved you. I married you because you looked like him. I know you may think I owe you, but you wouldn't understand. If only back then, asterisk, I didn't need to hear her nauseating love story with Tony again. I cut her off. Asterisk, fine, I'll sign the divorce agreement, but only after my lawyer reviews it. As for Tony, asterisk, what makes you think signing the forgiveness letter will get him off the hook? Asterisk, Hailey frowned, confused. Asterisk, what do you mean? Asterisk, I smiled but didn't answer. As we sat in tense silence, she received a phone call. Whatever was said on the other end made her face turn pale. She hurriedly left the room. I knew why. Tony had just been charged with attempted murder. Was my death truly just an accident? Did Hailey marry me merely because I resembled Tony? Of course not. This was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan. And Hailey wasn't lying. She never wanted to marry me. She married me for Tony. From the very beginning, it was to spite him. It happened after their third breakup. Tony left for overseas, and she, abandoned and heartbroken, stumbled upon me. She had never imagined meeting someone who resembled Tony so much. What shocked her even more was discovering that I was Tony's elder half-brother, the very same brother Tony despised with a passion, born from another mother. The brother who, to destroy Tony, had once extended his cruelty to her as well. Yet, she still chose to approach me deliberately. She schemed to lure me into her arms, going as far as proposing to me herself. I fell for her just as she had hoped, falling in love at first sight when she first seduced me, and fulfilling every one of her demands thereafter. She wanted a grand wedding, one the whole city would see. She was gambling, betting that Tony would come back to stop the ceremony. She won half the bet. Tony did come back, but not to stop the wedding. He came to beg her for help in exacting his revenge. Tony recounted how their family had persecuted him. He claimed his departure years ago wasn't voluntary, blaming my mother for orchestrating everything behind the scenes because he was illegitimate. In the end, Hailey agreed to help the man she loved. Over the course of our 3-year marriage, she repeatedly used her supposed insecurity to demand shares of the corporation. And because I loved her, I ignored my mother's protests and gave in time after time. But even the 10% of shares she acquired couldn't satisfy Tony. What Tony wanted was the entire corporation. Then came the day I picked Hailey up from the airport and found her entangled with Tony. Enraged, I drove off with Hailey, only for Tony to recklessly chase after us and force us to stop. It was all part of their plan, to ensure the driver's airbag in my car would fail so that I wouldn't survive the accident. I know this because in my previous life, after my death, my soul never left. This foolish romantic even stayed by Hailey's side to protect her. It wasn't until I overheard her confession to my mother, when she was confronted about why she had conspired to kill me, that I understood everything. That day, as she tearfully begged for forgiveness, I finally saw the truth. By then, it was too late. My mother, devastated, had already been sent to a psychiatric hospital by my father and was tormented to insanity. Tony had succeeded in his revenge against her. At that moment, my love for Hailey was extinguished, replaced by pure hatred for her and Tony. I can only assume the heavens gave me this second chance to exact my revenge. The news reported Tony being charged with attempted murder, and my phone rang incessantly. I ignored them all until my father, Bame, called. I finally picked up. Rocky, let it go. He's your brother. Why make things so ugly? Brother? I wasn't aware I had a brother who tried to steal my wife and kill me. Rocky, for my sake, stop pursuing this. The so-called evidence won't hold up in court. You should try telling that to the police. Rocky, I'm your father. Don't follow in your mother's footsteps doing shameful things. If you end up failing, don't expect your family to show any mercy. What exactly did my mother do that was so shameful, Bame? Are you sure it wasn't someone else? Let me remind you, without my mother and me, the old man wouldn't have taken you seriously in the first place. Don't push your luck. How dare you? I hung up, his furious yelling still echoing in my ears, leaving me lost in thought and anguish. As expected, just like in my previous life, Bame had chosen to side with Tony. In the end, he still chose his illegitimate child with his first love, showing how heartless he could truly be toward my mother and me. All remnants of my naive hope were crushed in that moment. Neither my wife nor my father deserved another chance. Starting now, I would show no mercy. Rocky, I can't believe you'd stoop so low. How could you fabricate accusations against him just to vent your anger? Before Tony's trial, Hailey posted late at night, condemning me. Her post included a long essay accusing me of being erratic, temperamental, and downright malicious. I dismissed it with a laugh, but public opinion soon began to swell against me. The internet buzzed with rumors about how my mother had secretly tormented Tony for years and how I had schemed to frame him out of jealousy. In their narrative, my mother and I were the ultimate villains of this story. Fortunately, I had already sent my mother abroad for a long vacation and cut off all communication with the domestic scene. This ensured she wouldn't be harmed, allowing me to focus entirely on dealing with Hailey and Bame. Mr. Rocky, your family drama really is the stuff of tabloids. Then tell me, Miss Serena, do you think you can help me win this fight? I had enlisted the best PR expert in the country, who also happened to be Hailey's longtime nemesis, Serena, a woman who had once been a thorn in my side, constantly digging up dirt on Hailey. Over the years, we had crossed swords many times, all for Hailey's sake. Of course I can, Serena smirked. As long as you stop trying to bury me with your financial power, I can turn the tide in no time. Hailey was a fool to mistake a worthless stone for a gem. Without your support all these years, she'd never have become a top actress. Ahem. Though my betrayal by Hailey was public knowledge, having it thrown in my face still stung. Miss Serena, do you have personal grievances with Hailey? From what I know, you two were just middle school classmates. So why are you so intent on targeting her? Mr. Rocky, I do have grievances. If it weren't for her, my foster father wouldn't have. Never mind. Let's focus on winning this battle first. As she spoke, her eyes revealed both pain and fury. I wasn't sure what had happened, but it intrigued me. In the past, I had investigated their supposed grudge, but came up empty-handed. Now, however, Serena mentioned her foster father, a detail I had never uncovered before. Years ago, there had indeed been an incident that nearly destroyed Hailey and almost cost me my life. The mastermind behind it was a middle-aged man. Could it be? I glanced at Serena, who was busily working, and suddenly realized there might be more to this story than I had ever imagined. Under Serena's meticulous planning, my counterattack began. As Serena put it, the best way to fight a war of public opinion is to use magic to defeat magic. They accused my mother and me of being cruel and ruthless, constantly oppressing Tony and his mother. So, we depicted how my father climbed to power by relying on my mother and grandfather, only to cheat on her with his first love during her pregnancy. We highlighted how Tony's mother provoked my mother during her late pregnancy, nearly causing a dangerous childbirth. Through this series of revelations, we painted my father as an ungrateful scumbag and Tony's mother as a knowing homewrecker. The narrative shifted dramatically. People marveled at the supposed struggles of Tony and Hailey's love. I, on the other hand, established myself as the devoted second lead, laying bare a secret I had buried in my heart. I love Hailey, and I've loved her for a full 15 years, maybe even longer. When I first met Hailey, I was only 15 years old, and she was just 13. It was a time of youthful innocence. I first encountered Hailey when I was cornered in an alley by a group of thugs. She appeared out of nowhere and saved me. The story might sound cliche, but I was captivated. At the time, I was often bullied, and my parents were too busy with the family business to pay attention to me. I thanked her, and she handed me a box of Band-Aids, saying boldly that she would have my back from then on. Her hearty laughter and sunflower-like smile remain vivid in my memory. It was at that moment I found myself drawn to her. The second time we met, she was a bit annoyed and asked why I had ignored her the past few days. Though puzzled, I apologized to her. I thought I might have been distracted. Looking back now, she had probably mistaken me for someone else. After that, I began looking forward to seeing her. Even though she would sometimes complain about how I was aloof and unpredictable, she found it amusing, though, and would laugh it off after venting. I was confused but never argued back. If not for what happened later, we might have been the kind of childhood friends who grew up together. Then came the day I saw her running out of an alley, looking flustered. A middle-aged man with a menacing expression was chasing her. When Hailey spotted me, she shouted for help, claiming the man was trying to assault her. Fueled by anger, I picked up a brick and stood between her and the man. I told her to run, thinking this time I would protect her, but I never expected that as soon as she disappeared around the corner, I was struck from behind and lost consciousness. Before I blacked out, I caught a glimpse of the man's terrified face and heard strange sounds, the kind of garbled noises made by someone who couldn't speak. He seems to be mute, was the last thought in my mind before everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in a hospital, surrounded by family, friends, and police, but Hailey wasn't there. The police questioned me about the incident but didn't mention Hailey. I figured it was better this way. For a girl, being involved in something like this would always lead to gossip, no matter the outcome. So, I chose to hide the truth. I only admitted I had been been attacked. But as for whether it was the mute man, I claimed not to know. What happened after that, I didn't find out, because on the third day of my recovery, my mother decided to send me abroad. Who would have thought that this injury would make my mother suddenly start paying attention to my life? And it was during this period that she discovered Tony's existence. It turned out my father had secretly kept Tony close by, even enrolling him in the same school district as me. Those thugs who had been bullying me, they were hired by Tony. This led to a confrontation between my parents that couldn't be resolved. To protect me, my mother insisted on sending me away. Before leaving, I wanted to see Hailey one last time, but when I went to school, I saw her laughing and chatting with another boy. From a distance, they seemed so close. In that moment, I lost my courage. I didn't even say goodbye to her. During my years abroad, I kept that box of band-aids with me. As time passed, the feelings I had as a teenager became clearer. I realized I could never forget her. I understood then that my inexplicable hesitation and those irrational thoughts stemmed from my love for her. I tried to find her through friends in the country, but got no results. Then, by chance, I saw her in a video online. That's when I learned she had entered the entertainment industry. I asked my friends back home to look out for her. I desperately wanted to return, but they told me she had a boyfriend and advised me not to get my hopes up. That news was a blow, but I didn't want to disrupt her happiness, so I chose to watch over her from afar. I avoided learning anything about her relationships, too afraid to find out what kind of man had won her heart. At the time, I didn't know her boyfriend was Tony, and Hailey could never have imagined that the man she loved had been deceiving her from the very beginning. During those disheartened days, unable to love the one I wanted, I sought glimpses of her in others. As the eldest grandson of the R family, many women threw themselves at me. Even though I kept my distance, I still earned a reputation as a playboy, until one day at a club, I unexpectedly ran into Hailey. I didn't know why she approached me, but it seemed she didn't remember me at all. Her clumsy attempts at flirting and seduction left me outwardly indifferent, but inside, I was ecstatic, like a puppy wagging its tail furiously. Even when my friends tried to warn me, I didn't care about her motives or hidden intentions. It didn't matter. As long as I could stay by her side, I was willing. So, even when I knew she was with me out of heartbreak, or that her reason for marrying me might be tied to someone else, I didn't mind. I thought maybe this was heaven's reward for me. After all, every crisis in her career, every opportunity she seized, was made possible by my financial support and efforts. There was a rumor online about a mysterious benefactor helping Hailey from behind the scenes. No one knew that person was me, but I never expected that 3 years of waiting and 16 years of unrequited love would end with her cold abandonment. Even so, I still love her. If she wants to leave and pursue her happiness, I'm willing to let go with dignity. Once my confession was released, the online narrative shifted. Some began siding with me, while others still dismissed it as a conspiracy theory. And then Hailey came looking for me. "You're saying you were the one who saved me back then? And the one helping me all these years? Who else could it be? Did you think it was Tony? Wasn't it?" Her voice faltered as uncertainty clouded her face. She looked at me, desperate for confirmation. Until now, she truly believed that the one shielding her from every storm had always been Tony. After all, her love story with Tony began with mutual heroics, eerily similar to the account in my confession. I had never imagined that Hailey would mistake someone else for me. In my previous life, not long after my death, she found that box of bandages among my belongings, the very box Tony had claimed he'd lost. It was then that guilt consumed her, compelling her to investigate the truth. By the time she uncovered everything, it was too late. I was already gone. The damage had been done. Her remorse became meaningless. In this life, she stood before me, waiting for an answer I was reluctant to give. Her eyes reddened as her emotions unraveled. "Are you lying to me?" she cried out, her voice trembling. "You're lying. You're disgusting, Rocky. None of this is real. You can find out for yourself," I said coolly. "You're a big star now, aren't you? Surely someone of your status can dig up the truth." I didn't respond further, but Serena suddenly walked in, her lips curling into a smirk as her gaze met Hailey's. "It's you?" Hailey's doubt turned to fury at the sight of Serena. "You two are in this together? So it's all fake. I'll investigate everything, and when I find the truth, I'll expose your lies, Rocky, Serena. You'll both pay for your deceit." "Go ahead," Serena scoffed, her expression smug. "Let's see who the liar really is." Hailey stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The room felt eerily silent with just Serena and me. Both of us waited, neither willing to break the silence, until Serena finally spoke. "The mute man was my adoptive father. He didn't attack anyone, but Hailey lied, claiming she saw him hit you with her own eyes. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison but died there. His health was always poor. before. Her words shattered the quiet. Through her, I learned what happened after I left. The police had questioned Serena's father extensively and discovered Hailey and Tony's involvement. Her father admitted he had been hired by Tony to scare Hailey, a setup for Tony to swoop in and play the hero. The plan worked perfectly until I appeared. Then things got complicated. Serena's father claimed someone else had hit me, another Tony. It was all a mess, and I was already abroad, so the police turned to Tony for answers. But Hailey intervened, testifying as an eyewitness. She swore Serena's father was the assailant. The weapon bore only my fingerprints and Serena's father's, no other prints. Her father went to prison. Serena believed in her father's innocence, which fueled her hatred toward both Hailey and Tony. As I listened, I realized the truth wasn't as simple as I'd imagined. I thought Hailey had merely mistaken someone else for me, but perhaps she never knew who I truly was to begin with. In my previous life, my understanding of events was fragmented. I had died before learning the full story. What exactly had Tony done back then? And what truth had Hailey uncovered in my past life? I needed answers from my half-brother, Tony. Rocky, you came all this way just to ask about that? Tony stared at me, surprised and confused. Then he sneered as if a cruel joke had dawned on him. You're still hung up on Hailey, huh? After everything she's done to you, you still want to prove she loved you, so she'll take you back? He laughed bitterly. You're pathetic, Rocky. Fine, I'll tell you. The day after you first met her, I approached her pretending to be you. Every time you two met, I'd follow, then approach her the next day as myself. We looked so much alike back then, she never noticed the difference. I knew you liked her, he said, his voice dripping with malice. So I decided to steal her, to ruin her, and to ruin you. There was no hero saving the damsel. I wanted her to suffer, to be hurt by you. Serena's father? A mute fool. My pawn. My plan was simple. Have him grab Hailey, and then, as you, destroy her completely. But you had to show up, didn't you? You ruined everything. Do you know how many times I wished you had just died? Tony's words oozed venom. He was a monster, and at 14, no less. You're insane, I said, my voice cold. Me? He snapped. Your mother drove my mother to her grave. She's the one to blame for all of this. Tony spat his accusations, but I didn't react. I knew the truth. His mother hadn't been a victim. She'd been a pawn in our father's twisted game, a casualty in his bid to secure the family legacy. Calmly, I handed Tony a file. It contained the truth about his mother's death. Tony flipped through it, his face draining of color. No, this can't be. It's fake. It has to be fake. But the evidence was irrefutable. Our father, the man he had revered, had orchestrated his mother's death. Tony had been nothing more than a tool in his father's scheme, a pawn discarded when no longer useful. Tony crumbled under the weight of the revelation. I turned to leave, but he called after me. Rocky, let's make a deal. Tony's proposition was straightforward. If I let him go, he would leave Hailey alone. According to him, Hailey's false testimony back then was a major scandal, one that could destroy her entirely if exposed. If I agreed, he even offered to give Hailey back to me. I looked at him, utterly speechless. It dawned on me that he and Hailey were cut from the same cloth, far too self-absorbed. Why do you assume I'd still love Hailey? You two are the ones who are truly in love, aren't you? Those who commit wrongdoings deserve to face the consequences. Rest assured, neither you, Hailey, nor Bame will escape justice. By the way, Tony, what makes you think I have the power to manipulate this case? Do you think the law is some private playground? This isn't a civil lawsuit, it's a criminal case. For the first time, I saw genuine fear and disbelief in Tony's eyes. Leaving the detention center, I handed over the recording of my conversation with Tony to Serena. Once this is made public, Hailey will fall from her pedestal. Are you sure you want me to handle this recording? Serena asked cautiously, as though she suspected I still harbored some inexplicable feelings for Hailey. I waved her off. I've already died once. Anything I should have let go of, I did long ago. Being a lovesick fool leads nowhere. Is that so? Well, in that case, I won't hold back. Thank you for the bonus. Boss Rocky, I love it. Serena left, gleeful and practically skipping. Watching her, I felt a strange warmth fill me, either from finally seeing everything come to an end or from sharing in her pure joy. Serena acted quickly, as did I. When Hailey's false testimony leading to the death of an innocent man was exposed, Bame was simultaneously charged with the murder of his lover 20 years ago. The drama in the wealthy circles spiraled out of control, with the public unable to keep up with the police reports. Public opinion shifted steadily in my favor. As Tony's trial reached its first verdict, I also filed for divorce. Hailey, however, refused. She claimed she still loved me and didn't want to let me go. Rocky, why are you doing this? Why won't you see me? I know you still love me. We have a connection. Please, don't leave me. A month later, I saw Hailey again. She had lost all her former radiance and looked utterly haggard. The moment she saw me, she threw herself at me, her eyes brimming with tears, filled with regret and guilt. If this were the past, I might have felt heartbroken seeing her like this, but now I felt nothing. Miss Hailey, wasn't Tony your true love? Why are you suddenly interested in Rocky now? Or could it be you're reluctant to lose the person who really supported you all this time? Wow, your true love really is flexible, huh? And where there's a chance to make Hailey squirm, Serena was sure to appear. I didn't even notice when she arrived, but she brought a group of reporters with her. Boss Rocky, I'm just taking a small interest payment. You don't mind, do you? Serena whispered apologetically. I chuckled, indicating I didn't care as long as she didn't go overboard. Hailey's face darkened when she saw how closely Serena and I interacted. Serena, you're so shameless. Slandering me wasn't enough. Now you're seducing my husband? Hailey, are you okay? Which eye of yours saw me seduce Rocky and slandering you? Are the police reports fiction too? Just because it's past the statute of limitations doesn't mean you're innocent, you know? We all have eyes, unlike you. You've spent years blind, treating pearls like worthless stones. Such a fool. You. Hailey trembled with rage, but soon composed herself. She turned her gaze to me, eyes soft and pleading, an expression I knew all too well. 3 years ago, she had used this very look to charm me. Did she think I'd fall for it again? Rocky, I know the truth now. Let's start over, okay? You've loved me for so many years. You can't just stop loving me, right? Let's go home. Go home? Hailey, did we ever have a home? You've never loved me. For 15 years, no matter what the truth was, it was always Tony you were with. I was just a tool in your love story. Let go. The moment you chose to side with Tony, we lost any chance of a home. Tears streamed down her face as she clung to my arm, unwilling to give up. Rocky, are you really giving up on me? Can you truly say you don't love me anymore? Hailey, I once asked you the same question. You told me you never loved me and only married me because I reminded you of him. So now, my answer is the same. One by one, I pried her fingers off me, speaking each word with clarity. The person I loved was the girl from 15 years ago. You're just someone who looks like her. My divorce case went smoothly. Hailey's adultery, combined with her suspected collusion with Tony in attempted murder, meant she left the marriage with nothing. Tony and Bame were both swiftly sentenced due to overwhelming evidence. Tony received 20 years for attempted murder, while Bame got life for premeditated murder. As for Hailey, the scandals, coupled with the lack of support from the R group, led to her being dropped by major brands, which demanded hefty compensation for breached contracts. She tried contacting me several times, begging for help, but Serena personally handled each attempt with scathing rebuttals. Yes, after my divorce from Hailey, Serena and I gradually fell in love. We eventually held a grand wedding, one even more magnificent than the one I had with Hailey, broadcast worldwide. As I looked at Serena, blushing and filled with love, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude for the second chance life had given me to let go of youthful obsessions and embrace my true love. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.